how do you work with the breath in a moment by moment basis? Or like, how can you give us this practical tool of to start to become aware of you're having a tough conversation, you're dealing with a child having a tantrum, you're stuck in traffic. Like, how can we just drop in and make sure we're breathing correctly and, to move out of stress?
The question that you ask now, if practiced and applied regularly, the answer to this question would save hundreds of thousands of lives in, I would say, the next few months, if not the next year. Just the application of this question by itself. It's a phenomenal question. So as most people know, as you said, we are inundated with doingness and busyness. Okay, health at the moment, one of the key aspects of health is removing interference. Let me be impeccably clear. It's not adding anything, it's removing. Okay, because most people want to add this and what supplement and what this. If you just literally remove stress and things from your life, already you will heal. So firstly, it's the opposite of what most people think. What can I add in to my life? No, no, it's what can I peel back and become more still. Okay, just as a first point. To answer your question, there are two parts to the nervous system. I believe most people would know this. You have the sympathetic nervous system of stress and survival, and the parasympathetic nervous system of rest and digest. The sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, it's designed to keep us alive. So if there's a car coming, we need to get out of the way really quickly. Our adrenals will secrete cortisol, will move quickly, blood and energy will move to the arms and legs, and we can get out of there really quickly. It's a really great and really important for survival. But when you study the neocortex and you look at the aspects of the brain, you'll actually see that we are hardwired to live in a beautiful state about 90% of the time. That's the parasympathetic state that the ancient Indians, the teachings of the ancient yogis, used to call the God flow system. That God, the greater organized design, divinity, consciousness, light, can only flow through you when your nervous system is tuned in to a beautiful state. And so we know we can't access the executive center of the brain when we're stressed. We know we turn down and down regulate the immune system, the reproductive system, so many other systems when we're in a stressful state. So it's well researched and we're well aware that stress, fight or flight, living in the rut is one of the most dangerous things for our health. Now, to answer your question, how does that relate to breath? Well, the easiest way to explain it, and there's of course many parts to this, but most people, unfortunately, as I mentioned, instead of being 10% of their time in fight or flight and 90% of their time in rest and digest in the beautiful state. If you look at nature, nature is resting, it's flowing, and there might be a short, a moment of time where, you have to run away from a predator, but you don't do that all the time like we have started doing. Okay, and by running away from a predator, of course, we're talking about fight or flight. It's the same effect on the system. And so now, if we consider that we should be in a beautiful state 90% of the time, and we should be, in survival no more than 10% of the time, it's actually the other way now, Kelly. Most people are living in fight or flight in the sympathetic nervous system 90% of the time. So we need to break the habit of what we've done for so long, and we need to come home. Now, how do we do that? Well, first thing that people don't recognize is that the way you breathe is turning on and attuning your nervous system. So you can actually use your breath as a trigger to change from stress to presence, from fear to love. And the simplest way to start is to be aware of the difference between nose breathing and mouth breathing. So if you're breathing through the mouth, you would, and it's not black or white, but it's the easiest way to explain it, you would normally turn on the fight or flight system. Because think about it, if you're being chased by a predator, if you need to get away from something quickly, you're going to need a lot of oxygen real quickly, and you breathe through your mouth. Right? And then you run, and then you're out of danger. The problem is now most people are breathing to the upper part of the chest, and they're breathing through the mouth throughout the day. So Kelly, it's as if there is a invisible on button And every time we breathe through the mouth and through the upper chest, rather than in through the nose and into the belly, every time we're breathing like that, what we're doing is we're turning on the stress response. And 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 if we do that throughout the day, turning on the stress response, because we're not aware of how we're breathing, it's as if we're literally co-creating it unconsciously, and we are. And so the easiest way, and we can try this now, anyone listening, watching, just sitting up, taking a moment, close your eyes. If you're not driving, then don't close your eyes. Either way, take a moment to breathe in through your nose and drop the belly. Really let it hang. And then exhale. You see, a lot of people have just been holding their tummy in for so long, trying to look better or feel better or something. But right now, no one's watching. So let's do this. Breathing in through the nose, deep into the lower belly. Let it drop. Let it sink. Exhale. And just relax the tension in your body. And let's take one more breath in through the nose, into the belly. And when you think you've breathed in, fully breathe in more, really fill up that lower belly. Now you feel your lungs filling. Exhale and let it flow. And what we just did was press reset. We just reset the fight or flight system and we started dropping into the parasympathetic, the God flow system. So to answer your question, after delivering some science and some understanding around it, if people breathe through their nose deep into the belly throughout the day, if you do that for 30 days, you are going to feel so different and you're going to have a very different experience of life just by doing that. And again, just to mention, it's completely free. In fact, it costs us a lot if we don't do it, as far as I'm concerned.
So to summarize, we're starting tomorrow for this 30 days. We're starting today. Anytime we become aware of some stress in our mind, we take a moment if we can. And if we're not driving, close our eyes and we just belly breathe through our nose and out through our nose. What, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times?
As many times as you can. And what I advise to my students is, start to count. If you want to play a game with yourself, start to count how many times per day you have been aware of your breath. And for most of our students in the beginning, it's like 1, 2, 3 times maybe. And then sometimes like, oh my gosh, I've gone a whole morning without even tuning into my breath. Right? And over time, we're shortening the gap. So maybe now it's 5 times a day. And maybe in 30 days, oh, I've been aware of my breath, 15 times a day. And the more you shorten the time in between your awareness of each breath, the more you're living in the present moment. It's not just for health and healing and so on. It's a point of mastery to access the presence that is. So there's so many benefits to this. You could gamify it like that if you wanted, but you're absolutely right. Is how many times, as many times as possible today, can I tune in with my breath in and out through the nose and just letting go of any tension in the body? And you'll notice a massive change over time.
Okay. Now I'm going to take it up a notch. I'm just going with whatever spirit's putting in my question here. Take it up a notch. You just got highly triggered. Your boss, your partner, your child, the politician on television, whatever it is, to the point of like high anxiety, bordering on a panic attack, and you cannot catch your breath. How would you coach someone to move out of that state and back into their body and dropping, potentially into parasympathetic, but at least out of panic to be able to even breathe?
Well, you'll see it in first aid responses, even, when someone is in that shock state, or panic attack or anxious attack type state. The first thing they do is, okay, focus on your breath. Okay, breathe in nice and slow. So it's a calm voice and it's breathe nice and slow. And it's just the same. Now, if you're in an emergency, you need to deal with whatever you need to deal with. But for most times, it's not going to be an emergency, even though it may feel like one. So if it is one, deal with it, of course. If it's the feeling of one, which is as real for the human, it's not, no one's dying here. It's not an emergency, but it feels like that. It feels very scary often. And again, same thing. Come back to your breath. And this is why, like in our coaching programs, we certify what we call quantum coaches. So our coaches become breathwork trainers and also meditation teachers. And this is because we want to have these tools for our loved ones. So, for example, one of our students the other day had her mum having a panic attack, an anxiety attack in her car. And she knew which breathwork to go to, and she knew how to guide her, what tonality to use, and how to go about it. And so it was basically, okay, now just you're doing really good. Everything, you're safe. Now what you're experiencing is challenging. So just come back to your breath. See if you can breathe in nice and deep and prolong that breath. And then slowly exhale into the belly. So she took her through this breathing. I guess my point here is also, it does come back to breath right away. It will help you calm down much faster. And it's really beautiful if you have people around you, like your husband or your wife, your children or your peers or your friends that also know these techniques. I mean, hanging out and spending time in the right circles is obviously imperative, we know. From Heal as well, the documentary, you discussed the importance of having conscious social circle. And also potentially also having them aware of breathing and having them on a similar type of journey, because then we can assist each other in our communities as well.
Thank you for listening to the Heal with Kelly podcast. Be sure to tune in every Thursday for more empowering wisdom and inspiring healing stories. And make sure you hit the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss that one episode that holds the answer you've been searching for. Oh, and if you found this episode inspiring, please rate, review, and share Heal with Kelly so that we can grow our audience and reach more people. We truly appreciate it. Lots of love.